quorum. We have Ryan Schwamberger, who is not here today. And we had Eddie Sherman, I think as we mentioned last time, has resigned for the committee. And I just want to say for the record that we really have appreciated everything Eddie brought to the table. He brought a great sense of input regarding things like the Jazz Festival and put a lot of time into the committee, and is really going to focus more time on expanding the Jazz Festival and other musical type entertainment opportunities. So I just want to thank Eddie for his dedication to the committee, and we'll talk a little bit later in the agenda on potential replacements for Eddie. So the first thing I'd like to do is go ahead and look at approval of minutes. So you'll see those, they were sent out ahead of time. And what we'd like to do is get a motion in a second and then vote on approval of the meeting minutes from March 1st, 2019. So do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any against approving the motion, say nay. Okay, please note for the record that the meeting minutes of March 1st were approved unanimously by the quorum. All right, there's been no correspondence, official correspondence into this committee. So we'll go ahead right to citizen comment. And please note that citizen comment, it should actually be on the agenda. We'll make sure it is next time. Well, you're more than just citizen. Not that citizens aren't the most important thing, but you're also ad hoc members. So I'd open the floor up to anything anybody wants to say at this time. If Carol or anybody? Okay.
We're going to go down the
Agenda.
questionnaire.
We are. We're going to talk about the questionnaire. Yep, sure. Okay. Yeah, Chief. Yep.
Not sure. Good morning. Not sure if this is the time yet, but I just want to bring to your attention that down at the Bandstand area and Boardwalk, with the change, DART is parking in front of the restrooms and Jolly Trolley at the Boardwalk. We received several complaints from both of them over this past week already that delivery vehicles are blocking their route coming in and out, and so therefore the buses and Jolly Trolley can't drop people off right next to the curb and all that. I did send an email out to the city manager last night, just maybe about some signage or something with delivery vehicles. I have instructed my officers to be more cognizant of that and to make sure that the loading zone areas on each side of the bandstand area that's cut out the brick paver, make sure it is clear so tractor trailers can pull in there. That causes a little bit of rift because some businesses are happy because people jump out and get the french fries or get the popcorn and things like that, but it's a loading zone there. So when events aren't going on, so I bring that to the attention of this, that there's already some conflicts with the loading and unloading, to the point DART stopped the other day on Monday from going in front of the restrooms and went up to the Boardwalk. But then at that point in time, I started receiving phone calls from other mass transit that became an issue because then you had a truck up, delivery vehicles up there, you had DART and a Jolly Trolley. Things we encounter each and every year. I just wanted to bring it up that we're
That was my
working
question.
on it.
Is this kind of a common thing?
Yeah, but the truck drivers are a little bit concerned about, is that going to be taken away? Because if you read the section federal carriers and all that, technically mass transit areas, trucks aren't supposed to be stopping in front. So they have to be in the loading zones. And as you know, the loading zones are few and small in the back. So we're trying to work that out, but maybe something that comes back for the committee or the city manager. Just bring it to everyone's attention.
Okay. And Chief, while you're up there, if you don't mind, just two quick things for you,
Yes, ma'am.
since you're already standing
Yes.
up there. First of all, I said this to you at the beginning of the meeting, and I'm open to anybody else's observations, but, I spend a lot of every day walking around town with my little pup, but, well, that's, and again, not important, but I love her, so I just mention her all the time. But anyway, what I've observed, about your team, they are already instilling a sense of hospitality and courtesy and education and awareness versus kind of a strict compliance kind of, mentality. Very polite to people, offering guidance. And just from my perspective, given our clean, safe, friendly kind of approach to things, I just really think so far they've been nailing the friendly. So I'm open to any other comments, but I've just been incredibly impressed, Chief, and I thank you for taking on that culture, and
Thank you so
building
much
it.
for saying that publicly. And I will say that Lieutenant Sullivan and myself worked really hard with the summer officers and during training. Actually added a 4-hour block just on that interaction with the public this year. And also that's something new and going over things that concern like the smoking in the tents and all, and how to handle that and how to approach people to inform them and help educate. So we actually added another 4-hour block. So
Good.
thank you. I'm
Oh,
glad to
well,
hear that's working.
please, anybody else
This
wants
is one
to
of those
weigh
rare
in.
times that repeating is worth doing, and I would just like to echo what Commissioner Schlosser said, is that it's a real comfort and joy to live in a city where the law enforcement is, part of the welcoming committee, in addition to doing their hard jobs of, making sure that people behave. And so I applaud you and your team for kind of making that delicate balance.
Thank you so much. Again, I'll make sure I pass that on to each and every one of them and the shift commanders. Thank you.
Okay. So thanks, Chief, for that. And the second thing, again, while you're up there, one of the things that this committee worked with you on, is looking at the process for permitting and who's responsible for that. And I think you gave us a really good overview of how that works and kind of highlighted for us that I think the communication director is the point for everything, but there's a whole committee, a whole group that kind of weighs in and reviews permit applications. So that was really helpful, at least to me, to understand that and pass it on to those who ask. And one of the things that the chamber brought up was for major events, what's the policy, or can we look at a policy where there is a refund available if there's a weather cancellation or something kind of outside the control of the organizer? And I think you addressed that, but I was just wondering, now that the season's starting, more events, if you could kind of clarify what you're doing there.
Yes, if obviously with the permitting or whatever, the fees are in effect. However, if there is a rain cancellation or maybe the event just gets canceled overall, yes, we sit there and refund if there's any money already paid for the officers and things like that. And what's non-refundable is the application fee, the $50, but the rest of it would be. So if we're talking, I'll put Carol on the spot, or not on the spot, but I'll talk about her since she's here with Sea Witch. Yes, a day ahead of time, 24 hours, if she notifies us that, hey, the weather's looking terrible, we're going to go ahead and cancel. Yes, we're fine with that, and would work with the city officials to refund anything that we could. If we're already in process of coming in and it's too late to cancel or whatever, then probably not. But yes, we
Yeah.
try to work. We've already had issue with that. Person was going to plan on a small event or whatever. It didn't come together or whatever, so decided not to. And so, there was no additional fees except the I that was added. So again, we're going to try to continue to work with everyone.
Yeah, again, I find that to be part of this whole culture that we've been talking about a lot, the hospitality culture, and working with kind of those who do business with us or visit. And I really appreciate that clarification as well. Carol, or did you have something else, Chief?
No, I was just going to say
Okay.
they just got from the entire city staff, city
Yeah.
manager and the mayor, everybody, and
Yeah.
this up here, everybody's trying to use common sense if we could do that and make sure it's fair to everyone.
Okay, cool. Carol, does that make sense? Okay. All right, cool. Hey, thank you very much, Chief. Any other questions for the chief, just while he's up there? Okay, cool. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about in terms of old business is the bandstand the questionnaire, and I'm going to turn this over to Steve.
So one of the things that we've had a lot of conversation about is our roles and responsibilities. And so first of all, I apologize that the initial draft of this that was posted was not as clear as we intended it to be. And it's the update was to make it very clear that the city's responsible for the management and the oversight of all of our venues, and the bandstand, the convention center, Grove Park, and the beach. And that our committee works with the city to advise them and to work closely with them. But what I wanted to do in drafting the questionnaire was to bring in the insights and the views of the stakeholders of all of these facilities that the city manages and oversees, but that all play a big role in our interest in being a hospitable city and making it a very friendly city for people to live in and to visit. And so in an effort to improve the understanding of what we can all do to work better together, we drafted this very simple questionnaire to hopefully get feedback from the chamber, from Main Street, from people like Steve Perry, who's very much involved in all of these, from Sharon Lynn as the city manager, Chris Johnson, all the folks, Corey with the bandstand, to make sure that we are better integrated with all of the city functions as well as the stakeholders to do a better job. And so it's a draft. We're hoping that it can be finalized pretty quickly so that we can get the input. But I think it's a great opportunity for anybody who's involved in this to comment on it and help us improve it.
Please,
So did you
Carol,
have
jump
any
in.
comments?
There we go. Carol Everhart, Rehoboth Beach, Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce. So one of the questions was, you have suggestions regarding how you could increase the use of the hall. The first thing I'd say is I'd call it a community hall because that's where I think you're going to have the ability to increase usage on an hourly or half day or something like that. I'm going to go back to my old recreation and parks days and tell you that we had a facility, Northside Park, and we ran 30 to 50 programs a month, okay? And they were all hourly. This room was this room was that. So when I look at, your hall, to me, it looks like you could have everything from aerobics in there, yoga, exercise classes, kids events. If I knew the hall was available for an hour for a seminar, I have lots of members that would like to do something, but the space is prohibitive. If I want to rent it, I need an hourly rate for them to use it. So if it's an insurance company that wants to give a little spiel on something, there's all types of, activities like that I think if the hall was marketed that way and available on an hourly basis, it would take a lot of planning. So when is that going to be? What days is that going to be? What's the priorities? Because you wouldn't want to turn away a big convention because you have, or jazz or something like that, because you have these small events. But that's one of the things that I would say would really increase your usage, because we get asked, do you have a space for a seminar? And I can tell you, if it was hourly, you would be competitive with some of the convention area businesses, because that's typically not the way they rent, unless I'm having a luncheon or something like that. But if it's a simple use, no big setup, they bring in their yoga mats, and instructors up there, saying proud warrior, and away you go. Let me see.
Carol, can I ask you a question? And feel free to just grab that mic and sit down, because you're part of the committee. Like, you don't have to stand there. Sorry about that. Just in terms of a dialogue, and anybody else jump in. He's always dominated. But I think we're at this. It appears to me a little bit we're at this neat crossroads, and really a neat crossroads, not a bad crossroad, but a really cool crossroads. I know from the work Steven's doing and others with the convention center now. Holy mackerel, we had like Judy Collins in here. This is a legacy of our nation, of rock and roll, folk, of I guess it's not rock and roll, I don't know music that well, folk music. But, I mean, holy mackerel, I mean, it's just, to get that kind of draw here in our town is just something else. And I understand that particular promoter wants to bring in even more events. So, so I think that's a really cool thing for Southern Delaware and for our town. And so I wonder if, do you think there can be a balance between like a convention center and a community center? You know what I'm saying? Because I see it as really both now. That's just me. I mean, given kind of what we're seeing coming in and who's renting it, I kind of see it as both almost, as a big venue, but also something that can be for the community, like on an hourly or weekly. Do you see where we can have a balance like that?
I think it can be both, but you are limited in space. So
Yeah.
your biggest nemesis is space.
Space, yeah.
And you always have to consider that parking along with what you're doing there.
Yeah.
So I'm very familiar with that promoter. I worked with him in Ocean City.
Okay.
And he did come to us first when we were looking at, I think it was the choir was the first one
Oh,
that he brought
okay.
in, yeah.
The Vienna Boys
Yes,
Choir, is that his?
yes,
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I think those opportunities are there. Steve does a wonderful job. I mean, we work with him very closely, and we have absolutely excellent cooperation, follow-up, everything with all of the city staff and the police. So I don't think your issue is there. I think your issue is, how do you want to market it? What is your goal? What do you want to see it do? And then what's your priorities? Are you going to, do you know that really outside of a few weeks, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are vacant? But if you're going to have a big event, do you need Thursday for setup? That type of thing. So that takes some planning to make that happen. But you've got space. It's not you don't have any space. It's just the best use of that space.
Okay. Sorry, I digressed to the convention center topic.
Yeah,
but
I
Dale,
mean, just
yeah.
a question I might have is the city equipped to have the personnel that can handle that organization, that staffing, or is it bringing another person on to do that? If you bring somebody else in, is there budget constraints as to who can?
I don't know why this current city staff couldn't handle that. I don't know what their descriptions are currently saying. I can't speak to that. But typically, it's a scheduling issue. It's a scheduling issue. And if someone knows, I mean, I've been using this hall for 30 years, and we didn't have an extra person. We just had someone who handled the scheduling. You looked on the book, and if it was scheduled, it was scheduled, and if it wasn't, it wasn't. You now have a permit process, which should really assist, and we didn't necessarily have that before. You asked for the date, and then you provided your insurance and your backup, and the information that they wanted, but there was no, permit per se. But I think that helps the staff probably know what's coming up, and everybody's informed.
And the requests you've gotten for like the seminars and the yoga classes, whatever, are they typically on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or do people want the
Yes.
weekends?
Yes, people don't like to meet on Fridays. And Mondays are never really good days, so maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are high meeting days as a rule. For small things, I'm talking small things.
Right.
And, your other organizations, your library has some small space, and we've used that from time to time. But you really, organization-wise, indoor space, it's all commercial, unless it's at the library or it's here, or we have a small meeting room. But for the most part, you have opportunity. It's just, to us, how do you want to use that? And we can help market it. If you decide this is what we want to do, then we can certainly put the word out for you.
But part of it, you touched on, Carol, which is you have people because of,
Steve, sorry, just really quick, just for the record, I'm going to move the agenda item of convention center up since we're talking about the convention center. So
Okay.
I just want to note that for the record. Steve,
Okay.
please go ahead.
oh, no, I just wanted to say that in your role and with the chamber, you have people coming to you saying, hey, where can I go to do this or that or whatever.
Absolutely.
And so that's one of the reasons why we created the questionnaire was to kind of get that, my experience has been, it's been kind of anecdotal, but we wanted to kind of capture that a little bit more formally so that could help inform us to do a little bit of a better job and coordinate better with the city manager and her staff.
Okay. typically what happens, and that's with the Vienna, the choir, Bob came to me and said, we'd like to bring it to Rehoboth. Do you think that space is big enough? I suggested he come over and look at it for himself to see that space. And then we just helped him promote that in any way we could. And all of those types of things. You know, I think you have real opportunity there.
But there was substantial negative feedback on both those events.
Well, I
Has
would.
anyone talked to the promoter? Is he happy to come back again?
He is coming back again. He brought another, didn't he bring the Judy Collins, the next one? I know he brought another one after that. I think some of your facility, meaning your sound and that type of thing, I'm sorry, that's my phone and I can't get to it. I thought I hit do not disturb, but I guess I didn't. I think things could be improved, but I think it can be a slow improvement. I don't think I would have events in there, okay? I will have events in there.
Did you say you would or you wouldn't?
I will, but I'm going to model them to what you can handle. And as things improve, we'll go a little bit bigger. So we're baby step kind of people.
Yeah.
Each year a little bit different, because of, you know, budgetary restraints, staffing restraints, all those types of things.
Well, you're talking, and I happen to agree about rebranding the building. I think there can be mixed use in that rebranding, but there's pricing concerns, there's equipment concerns, there's marketing concerns. I'm not sure we have the capability to do that at the moment.
Well, you can start small, you know. You already called a convention hall. It's on everything. So you're a convention hall, and you also accept small events and venues on an hourly basis or half-day basis. Some people just do half-day, and some do hourly. In this town, I would suggest hourly if you're going to do that.
Let me, Steve, just go back real quick to the survey, and I want to come loop back around to this discussion on the convention center, if it's okay. Do you want to kind of, did you get what you need for the survey, or do you
Yeah,
want
I
to
mean,
just
it's,
make sure we get what you
I
need for
think,
that? Or
you know, so what we plan to do is to get it out to you folks and, you know, people on Sharon's staff, like Stephen Perry and others who work with this on a daily basis, so that we can start exploring those types of things. Because I think we've, and what got me really behind this was the challenges that we face in trying to establish a rate structure, and your insights into, you know, considering an hourly rate that would make it more appealing to folks who have small needs and that aren't, you know, big major events. They don't need it for an entire day. Those are some of the things that we need to hear so that we can make better recommendations, and then see what the challenges will be and work with the city to work through those challenges. So this is very helpful. And so the next step in this process would be, unless there's any suggestions on refining or revising the list of questions, it was intentionally kept small and simple and focused on what this committee is responsible for. Is to get it out so that we can get that feedback and those insights and start working the what we're talking about today. What are the possibilities, and how do we work together to achieve better results? And it'll help us make better informed decisions and on what type of rate structure to recommend on an annual basis. So that's really how this all ties together.
The smaller organizations in town, like the library, the YMCA, MER, you know, MER might like to come in and do a nice little environmental type of thing that's just a couple hours. It's just sign up for this, and we're going to, you know, talk to you about the whales. There's all types of little programs like that. So I think if it were me, I would want to talk to those people that are already doing those things. Is the YMCA, are there people asking to use that facility and they're booked out? I don't know. What are they being asked for that they can't do? I don't know. Library, small meeting space upstairs. And I think more those kinds of people, would they be interested? And, and they might tell you, no, we have plenty of space, we're fine. But I think those are the opportunities. I can tell you from a business standpoint, there are people who are looking to rent something just for an hour or two for a seminar. And, you're going to collect your fee if nobody comes to the seminar. That's their job to promote who's coming. But you would have your facility rented on those slow days, whatever those are.
And then that's something that I hadn't, that was part of what I was thinking about. The other part was, how do we have year-round usage? And to try, I mean, it's already pretty much there when you look at when the Vienna Choir Boys were in town and, the Judy Collins concert was early May. And so just to kind of expand on that so that it becomes a facility, the outside facilities we know are limited by weather and seasons. But this facility in particular has a lot of opportunities that I don't think we've fully explored, and you've touched on a number of those things that we should be considering. And so I think this is very helpful.
Incredibly helpful. I think, so Steve, do you need anything else on the survey?
No, I
We
think
feel-
that's, yeah.
Does this group, any other comments from you, Edward, or others in terms of the survey? So I think what I'm hearing is a general consensus from the committee as well as kind of the ad hoc members that this is a good thing to do to get some data as to where we go next with these different areas and issues. So is that correct? We have a general consensus that that's something, okay, Edward?
I would just echo everything that Carol said. I think the most important thing is a marketing plan, and I agree that there's
Oh,
plenty
I'm
of
sorry,
groups.
just state for the record your name and role.
Edward Chinesky, President, Rehoboth Beach Main Street. I think the most important thing is marketing it the way that we want to, and the Chamber, Main Street, we can certainly help do that and promote it. And I agree, there's plenty of groups that would like half-day, hourly, but I think the fee structure as it is, although we probably bit off more than we could chew with the rate, and we went back, and I think that was very helpful. But doing half-day or hourly, I think, would be helpful during the week and slower times of the year as well.
Okay, great, thanks. So with that, if we have everything on the survey, and I think we have the kind of go-ahead to put that together, and we'll put that online and get that out to folks. I'd like to go ahead to the next part, continue on with the discussion, and it's new business, but I'd like to continue on with the convention center and opportunities, and maybe talk a little bit about some next steps even beyond the survey. So with that, Stephen, do you mind just giving us, I know you sent out a great report, and we appreciate that. Could you kind of just talk us through, give us a summary of where we are with bookings on the convention center and such?
Purchase the convention center? Sure.
Yeah.
Stephen Perry.
And maybe
City Hall
talk
worker.
us through a little bit weekends versus weekdays right now, whatever day do you have available? I know I'm asking you to do that kind of ad hoc, so whatever you have is great.
I mean, we continue to get bookings every week. It's always busy. The only constraint I have on booking people is, do we have the people to set it up and break it down, and do we, have the space available? It's the only reason I would ever turn people away if we don't have something available. Right now, I mean, it's mainly always weekends. We have about 4 or 5 groups that do week-long events, seminars, symposiums, polka motion, that sort of thing. There's only, because you just asked me this, I just jotted it down as a 1, 2, 12 groups that have come in from outside that have requested stuff on the weekdays. We do some stuff on the weekdays for the city, the election. Sorry, the election's this Saturday, but blood drive, Christmas parade. We do a night of food for the people that work with the fireworks, stuff like that. But it's mostly the weekends. Right now, we're booked every weekend between, I think, August 10th and the Christmas parade. Our busiest month is actually October, which is, off season, between polka motion and now the Greyhound event. and a conference with the state of Delaware, and the Jazz Festival, October is completely booked. And September is well on its way to being booked as well.
Does the 66,000 that you have in here for bookings to date, to 2019 to date, does that include all the bookings from August through December? Or
Yes.
or not
Yeah,
yet?
it's actually at 72 now. I just did 2 more auctions for Emirates, so it's about 72 now.
Okay, all right. Do you get a sense that we're going to exceed that 86K from last year? I mean, is that what we're trending
Absolutely. Yeah,
towards?
it's only May.
Definitely? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. All right, that's fascinating. And then back to just one question, and if you don't know, again, we can follow up because I'm just kind of free thinking as data is becoming available. You had mentioned that one of the constraints, obviously, space, but that the availability of resources for setup and breakdown.
Right.
Just remind me, like, do we have like 2 people assigned
People,
full-time?
And they're both part-time,
Full-time?
20 hours
No,
a
they're
week.
both part-time. Okay, all right, that's a good reminder. Huh, have we actually had to turn down groups because we don't have setup or takedown?
Never turn anyone down.
Okay.
We've had to rework where they're doing it, like
Okay,
the Judy Collins concert
uh-huh,
or the Milton Theater, where they brought in the Freddie Mercury
right, yeah.
group.
I
They
heard that
wanted
was
to do it on
good.
a Friday, but we had a big event on Saturday. We couldn't do them back to back, so they switched it to a Thursday.
Okay.
So they still came, but it did affect when they did it.
Why was that? Because we couldn't set up on Friday, or?
Because we couldn't break down a huge event Friday night and have it ready for Saturday
Oh,
morning.
I see. Got it. I understand. Okay. All right. Is that, if we had more resources, could we have done that, or is it just really simply a matter of logistics?
Want to have a crew that works overnight to do things?
see.
I mean, it's possible.
Oh,
Maybe.
that's
I don't know. I
Okay.
think that would be
All
a
right.
separate person.
All right. All right, just trying to understand that. So, okay, are there other questions on the data for the bookings for the convention center? Okay. How about weddings? Oh, yeah, Edward, please, yeah.
Steve, the 2 people that work, they primarily just work at the convention center?
No, they're the Chuck's crew for the building grounds. They do everything. They stock the bathrooms on the boardwalk.
So they're only working in the convention center when there is an
Right.
event.
Right. So some of these guys, they work all morning on the boardwalk. And I mean, one of them, Gary Parker, stayed till 2 o'clock in the morning once for a concert, and then he worked the next morning. I mean, they're incredible what they do.
Yeah, they are.
Never heard a word of complaint about what they do.
Yeah, no,
Never
they're,
say no to anything I ask them.
yeah, they're hard working. Yeah.
They're like, "You're killing us, you're killing us," but they never say no.
No, they're very, very diligent from my observations too, so,
I've gotten great compliments on them.
yeah, okay. Well, it seems to me, I don't know if there's anything else from the group, but I guess one of the things, I guess it kind of seems like maybe we need a special look maybe at the convention center. I've heard a lot of different aspects come up, staffing and resources, marketing, and clearly, I mean, I read Next Door Neighbor and some of the feedback as well. I haven't talked to the promoter, but I mean, certainly, some folks had some concerns about the comfort of the seating and the HVAC that sounded like an airplane landing on a tarmac or I don't know, whatever I heard quoted. And I think Judy Collins had to like stop the concert and ask what the noise was. So, and the third thing is, the whole sound system, is, I don't think we have a modern sound system in there. So, it seems to me we have enough. We have an understanding or a common baseline that, wow, we have a really neat opportunity here, but there's some things we need to sort out for the future, like how is our city going to support more growth of this? How and where do we get the investment to resolve some of these, logistical issues, like the seating, like the HVAC, et cetera. How do we market this and promote it, and do we want to do that? So it seems to me maybe it would be worthwhile to just pull together a group that puts together a recommendation on how we go forward with the convention center, to address these things. But I'm just going to tee that up and see what this committee thinks, and then if we think it's a good idea, sit down with the city manager and the mayor and the commissioners and see where we go forward. But I'd just like to tee that up as a thought, given kind of the feedback from the chamber and from Steve himself, the city, and from Main Street. So what do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I don't think there needs to be any other committee. I think this is something that we
I
should
mean
do.
a sub kind of
Well,
focus
we don't
area.
have that big of a group,
Yeah.
but no, I agree. I think that we certainly, in the interest of setting the rate structure correctly and those types of things, need to collect data and then make recommendations and share it with Sharon Lynn and her team and the mayor and commissioners. So I think that's a great idea.
What do you think as kind of a business owner who I think probably, gets a lot of benefit from the convention center bookings? What's your thoughts?
We do. I mean, you just have to look at, for like I'm hearing from the bigger events, we're really not equipped that well to do the bigger events. And, what will it take? And I guess that's what a subcommittee could work on and see, hey, if it's going to cost this much money in, are we going to get that much revenue out of it to kind of cover those expenses? I mean, if we upgrade the convention hall, will bigger acts want to come here? And does the city want to take that on? But yeah, I mean, I think as far as for businesses in the city, events do help out, definitely.
You bring up a good point, actually. I think we've always, and maybe this is the way it should be, and Peter, maybe you have something here, and I've tried to do some research, but I think so many things services and such and assets we have in town are really like cost centers, right? Whereas I think the convention center could actually be maybe a profit center, a revenue center for the city, maybe. I don't know if it can or can't be, but given that, we're trending toward 100K or so, I mean, a year on this, if it's not a profit center, it certainly could break even for itself somewhere down the line. So I think that's something a group could look at. Is it something, if we invest more in it, is it a way of producing revenue for the city? I don't know if it is or isn't. I mean, it's just, let's look at it. It may or may not be. I know a lot of cases, as we've talked about before, convention centers are really just, they break even, and they're more of a community kind of center to draw folks into town, and the real revenue comes from going to the restaurants and going to the shops and permitting or whatever else. So, but that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, and we have heard in this discussion, like you mentioned, that the convention centers are basically economic impact for the town. It really depends what it takes to get the thing up to the standards it needs to be and what kind of revenue it would generate, whether it could be a profit or even a break even, which would be great for the town.
Yeah. I don't know, Steve or Peter?
We've talked about this before. It
Yep.
cannot break even. It cannot break even. It has to justify itself through the economic impact it brings to the city. Now, if we want to make it a community center, the void will be filled. Clear Space will start to host events. The new hotel is going to have a large space. Dewey. I think Sussex County will build a convention center before too long. So the committee has to take all that into consideration. It's a terrific asset, and we need to maximize the asset, but it's not going to break even.
I don't know of a convention center that breaks
Yeah,
even.
I've seen, but definitely that's been the majority of things that I've read as well, so it just is,
They
Yeah.
are funded by the state or tourism marketing of a state, and they have a lot of money. And
Yeah.
that's how they survive.
never break even. They're certainly, you're saying they barely don't break even, and they're really not even profit centers down the road. Interesting. Yeah, okay, all right. Interesting.
But I think
yeah.
the key point here, and a lot of people are touching on it, is that it's a great opportunity to kind of take a step back and work with the city to determine, what that strategy is for use of the convention center, community hall, whatever we, and I think Carol and clearly pointed out that it can be multi-use, and that's, some of the bigger venues that are geared primarily for large events don't have that ability to be flexible and a little bit more nimble, where we may have that opportunity to kind of have a broader customer base. And I think we just have to work together and collect the data and then work with Sharon and her team to see what makes best sense for the city and to make suggestions. I think it's a great opportunity for us to maybe explore things that hadn't been considered when this building was contemplated. So I think, you know, it'll be an evolving type of, I don't want to say challenges, but opportunities, evolving opportunity to see how we do this.
I think if we got the right people in the room, we could create some events for that space. That would be a win-win for everyone. This city has so much energy going now, and there's so much interest in the fitness and the food, music, off-season, markets. There's just so much energy here, so much economic impact is going on all around us. It amazes me that that building is an asset, and we should figure out, and we can, how to maximize its use. And I think the whole community will benefit.
I'll add one more thing if I may.
Sure. No, it's been very helpful, Carol, thanks.
Your front line, so Steve, the people that are on the front line and know what problems happen when you start rescheduling things.
Yeah.
And mixing things, it can be done, but the front line's input is critical.
Absolutely, and that's
That's exactly where my head was going next, but thank you for saying that.
and that's why
Yeah.
we wanted to do something a little bit more formally rather than just kind of have hallway conversations. And so it's you know, with the whole thing with the 4-question questionnaire or survey, whatever you want to call it, was to start a conversation that has a little bit more rigor and a little bit more opportunity to generate a deeper conversation about all the things that we've touched on today. So you've far exceeded what my initial expectations were just in the conversations we're having today. And I think we'll be able to get good insights into what the possibilities are and have a more meaningful conversation with the city manager and the mayor and the commissioners so that we can explore how we can better use the convention center, community hall as a catalyst for economic vitality.
Well put, well put. I have nothing else to say.
The only question I might have is, and it might be off base, is the events that do happen here, do we do a follow-up survey with them or question like what could be done better or, you know, what their feedback is? Is that?
I don't do anything formal right now. I do check in with them just by email.
Right, and that might be something this committee would work on, is that little questionnaire, just to find out what their experience was, and that way we can see how theirs was and, you know, what we can do to change it to move forward to better experiences for future tenants.
Because, I mean, this is only one of your many, many responsibilities, Steve, as well, right? So I think that's even underscores more what Steve was saying is why we kind of need to look at this holistically. Do you?
Yeah,
I want to put you in a spot again. Yeah. Yeah, I know, okay. All
This
right.
week I'm doing parking permits as well, and so I mean.
Really?
I
Oh,
was
my
tasked
goodness.
with putting the calendar this morning, and I'm also doing parking, yeah, so it's like. it's
Okay.
like my fourth thing, right?
Okay.
And
See, that's actually good input.
Yeah, and that's,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
that's the
definitely.
importance of having all of the folks who are interested parties in all of this, you know, have a voice. And so I think, back to Carol's point earlier, you know, these may be incremental things that we're able to do, and that the demand will drive the change. And so I think it'll be a little bit delicate balance, but I think if we have an open dialogue and we have the right people involved in that we can do the right thing at the right pace. And that was one of the reasons to kind of put pen to paper and start, you know, making this more of a science than otherwise. So thank you for all of your comments today. I'm encouraged by what we're going to be able to do.
Yeah, this is excellent. Thank you. Thanks for everybody's participation and candid feedback. So, okay. Yeah, please. Anybody else jump in? Yeah, sure.
Jill, I think a survey is, I mean, that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, it is.
That should be a priority for this group. One other thing that I think may be helpful to think about is giving the staff some administrative flexibility on pricing, you know, if right now we don't have a policy for half day or hourly, giving the staff some flexibility to say, oh, it's open, you want it for 3 hours, let's make something work. Or I think may have been a couple nonprofits, and it may have been before we changed the rates back down, that were unable to do an event here in the off season because it was out of their budget. So I think if we just gave the staff some administrative flexibility, that may be helpful to work out some of those things where, you know, the rate may be 1,500, they only budgeted 1,000. It's otherwise going to sit empty. Why not make some variance to allow that to happen? Or
That can really get you in trouble.
Yeah,
it could. And so, but I think it's worth a
I know,
discussion.
I've been there.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think the city could have a better partnership with the chambers or Main Street. Some of these nonprofits, I think we could easily find, you know, if there's a $250 or $500 difference on what they budgeted to what the cost is, maybe having a business be a presenting sponsor.
That's a
something like
great
that.
idea.
I think we just need to be more creative in getting people to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we'd have to explore this,
creative.
but that might be like the fourth or fifth iteration, what Edward's talking about, because he's a very forward-thinking
Yeah.
person. It may be and again, trying to take incremental steps. You know, we might be able to recommend a supplemental pricing list that has like a half-day rate and a hourly rate for the weeks. And then as far as the creativity, I think we need to have a longer, deeper conversation about what the challenges would be to making it a little bit too flexible. And then people talk, and then it's kind of like, why did that person get $500 off and you're charging me $200 off? And I think I may not be articulating what Peter was mainly concerned about, but I think it's consistency because, you know, this isn't we're not a business, you know, it's the city. And so I think we have to be much more careful in those types of things. But certainly looking for ways to get the right people talking to each other so that if somebody wants to sponsor something, the fee gets paid, but it may be a different source than the actual the actual folks who are doing have the need.
And it may not be doable.
Yeah.
That's
trying
good.
to-
It's good. Good brainstorming. I
No,
love it.
and I don't mean to, I think it's a fabulous idea. I think these are the things we need to think about when we think about the future of using this building, the future of our city. But I also think that you know, we need to flesh these things out. But I think we need to look for those more immediate things that aren't as problematic or as challenging that we might be able to undertake. And again, in full coordination with Sharon and her team, to make sure, you know, what's feasible. Because that's, you know, one of the things I'm hearing today is, you know, the ideas are great, the opportunities are great, but we have limited resources and we have things that need to be discussed. And so again, back to the genesis of what I drafted and what you've been looking at and what has kind of prompted some of the conversation today is having a more meaningful conversation with the right people about how we can do this together. And then, you know, and before we get too far ahead of ourselves, make sure that we have the right the right view of it from a, you know, what's feasible and what isn't. And just because it isn't feasible 6 months and the next 6 months doesn't mean it won't be feasible a year from now. So I think these are things that if we do it the right way at the right pace, we can build on getting to where some of you who are very creative and forward-thinking visualize where we can be. So it's very encouraging.
It's doable, but there are no secrets. So it has to be structured. And
Not in
you've
this
got
town.
to start with the whole rebranding.
Yeah.
then you come up with the prices that work, not prices that have to be negotiated.
Right, that's a good point. And I think one of the challenges that we faced is we haven't had really a conversation. There's been a lot of talk, and there's been a lot of interest, and there's a lot of great ideas. But I think what this is going to do is help us shape the conversation so that we have the right people involved every step of the way, so that all these things can be fleshed out. Because clearly, the city manager, who's not in the room today, and some others, Chief Banks and some others who have a vested interest in all of these things we're talking about today, are going to have to be involved in what is feasible, what can we do, what do we want the brand to be for 2020, how does that evolve into 2025? And so I think that if we view it positively and not step on anybody's toes, I think there's a lot of good things that can happen here.
What I'm hearing is that we may need to look at a whole new management structure. When we have concern about turnover, arenas go from ice to basketball overnight. I realize it's a whole different thing, but we should be able to handle, if the economic impact is there, a rapid changeover. We could put together a team, maybe a public-private partnership that managed the building, and that would not be a concern of the other requirements that the city employees have. But it's starting, with the mission and the vision. What is this building going to be? Then, there are buildings like this all over the world, and they all work. We can make this work, and it can be a great asset for the community, no matter what road or all roads we go down.
And I mean, I couldn't agree more, but I think back to what the reality is we're going to have to, we're not going to be able to look at what it can be ultimately, but kind of build up to these things.
Or you have a vision of what it can be, but then as Carol said, also, kind of you walk, crawl, run.
Yeah.
Crawl, walk, run. Yeah, I haven't had kids. Crawl, walk, run.
But I
would be
I
the
view
way it
this,
goes,
it's a
so.
good start. I mean, I think that, the next series of conversations that we have about this that involve the people who are actually managing the facility is going to be most helpful, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, and that is part of kind of why I wanted this to be, and talking to folks and hearing this feedback and seeing poor Stephen and the crew, the part-time staff, like, we're almost too successful for ourselves right now with the convention center, and we're really stretching our staff. So where do we want to be, and how do we want to get there, and how do we resource it, I think is a really good next step here. So, and the survey is the good starting point, and Steve, you're going to take the lead on that, and hopefully a couple other conversations with city manager and others to kind of really formulate next steps. Okay, any other final comments on the, not final, I mean, but for this meeting? Okay, let's talk about a new member discussion. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, one of our members has resigned, that's Eddie Sherman, and I would just like to propose,
Is it member or members?
member.
Two.
Well, I'm gonna make a suggestion.
Kathy.
Well, that was Steve came in place of staff. Oh, well, that's true.
I was-
Well, let me
no,
make,
yeah.
let me make a recommendation. Good point, very good point, and open to suggestion there. The one recommendation I would like to make for this group's consideration is I would like to nominate an individual by the name of Kyle Tenek for the committee, and he is the co-owner of Mug and Spoon. And the family also owns, is Chip Hearns, who owns the ice cream store. So they own kind of those businesses there. And I thought it would be good to have somebody representing there. He's kind of a new member in town, a new business owner, has some good ideas already on some things we can do, and has contributed some data to different things like the discussion on the pedestrian walkway, et cetera. So I think that it'd be kind of a neat new voice, for this committee and for our overall community. So that's my one suggested nominee. And And then specific to the convention center, to a point a couple folks made, given the shortage of resources and such, in the city, I don't want to tax too much the city employees in terms of looking at this. I mean, definitely the city employees will be part of this group, but there's an individual in town by the name of Richard Green who actually planned conventions for Marriott and other organizations for over 30-some years. And he's interested, not in being a full-time member, but for coming on as like an ad hoc member of the group to help with particularly looking at the convention center, bringing his expertise on convention centers, management, et cetera. So my proposal is we bring Kyle on as a full-time member of the committee, and then have Richard come on just as ad hoc to help us with, help Steve out with the survey and kind of help us and lend his expertise, which is one of the cool things about this town. I mean, this guy as a consultant is wanted by, the major hotels and organizations across the country and charges a pretty big fee for that, but he's willing to come help us at no cost, figure out where we go with the convention center, how we resource it properly for what we want to do. So that's my suggestion, but I'll pause and open it up for discussion among the committee and the ad hoc, all the members of the committee.
No, makes sense to me. I think one of the other things that we're another area that might complement the committee a little bit more too is having somebody from the property owner, maybe the hotel business. Peter and I talked a little bit about this between meetings, and so I don't want to mention any names, but I've reached out to an individual to see if that individual might be interested, and I'll continue to follow up on that and then bring it back to the committee, hopefully really soon.
I defer to the chairman, but with what's happening, excuse me, the hotel expansion, not only in the city, but in Sussex County, is pretty dramatic. And I think we need somebody representing that industry, not necessarily ownership, but the event side, the production of economic impact for the hotel, which they're doing all the time. Eddie was unique. He was both a performer and a producer. And I think he leaves a void, particularly with what we're talking about in the convention center. So I would also like to consider somebody that either produces events or performs at events, so they bring us that insight. I know Green. I've talked with him on the beach. He has a lot of knowledge. He knows a lot about this convention center. He has a lot of opinions. I don't know the other person.
And
I mean, I know Richard Green as well. He's a fantastic individual, very smart and knowledgeable. The other aspect that Richard brings too is he founded a bus company that brings people into Rehoboth from DC, which is, I think, another quality that knowledge that he has, which could be useful.
That's a good point.
Well,
That's a really good point. I totally forgot he sold the business a year ago. I forgot he started that, but it was DC to New York and then Best Bus.
yeah,
Yeah, and he
DC
sold
to
that.
Rehoboth.
DC to Rehoboth. That's right. I forgot. So he brings a couple different dimensions of knowledge to the group. So that's a really good point. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
the one point I want to make about the composition of the committee that gets overlooked, I think, is there's a lot of concern in the community about having the residents' perspective on the various committees. And I just want to point out that I'm a resident, Peter's a resident, Lisa's a resident, Ryan is a resident. And so I think while some people may be dual-hatted, I think that we don't want to overlook the fact that the residents are represented by the things that we do. I know clearly when I approach these things, it's more as a resident than anything else, although I appreciate all the business activity that we have in Rehoboth Beach, and it's a huge draw on what makes this town unique. You know, I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that the residents are well represented in this committee.
Very good point, and Cal that, you know, I'd like to nominate as well and bring to the full commission. He is also a resident.
And I
here
didn't
in
mean to
town.
overlook, Dale's here all the time, so,
I live at the restaurant, yeah, basically.
right.
I can vouch for that. I see him while I'm working out at 8, and then at night while doing other things in town, so late. Yeah, practically a resident.
I'm sticking my neck out, but I think we should also consider a woman.
Yeah, you know what? I thought about that as I was getting my notes ready for today. I'm like, holy mackerel, here goes me again recommending a non-diverse slate. So that's a really good point. So I would love to, I'd like to do this just to kind of fill at least one of those slots and then get maybe Richard started. If maybe there's a motion that we recommend to the full commission adding Kyle and Richard as full-time, and then Kyle Tenek as a full-time member, and then Richard as an ad hoc member for now. And then I'd ask the rest of the group to consider, you know, where we have the gaps, as we've discussed maybe, and how we can fill them with a little more diversity. So maybe we could put that on the agenda for our next meeting, other nominations to that end. So is there right now a motion to nominate to the full commission Kyle Tenek as a full-time member and Richard Green as an ad hoc member?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All right, then let's go ahead and vote. If everybody agrees to this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any objections, say nay. Okay, the motion carries unanimously that we will recommend to the full commission that Kyle Tenek be added as a full-time member and Richard Green be added as an ad hoc member.
Do they have to be approved by the council?
Yes, the commission has to approve them. So we'll get that on the agenda for next time we can. Okay, let's see, so the next agenda item then, other priorities. Anything else anybody wants to discuss, any of the ad hoc members or anybody else? Okay, all right, then let's go ahead right to.
But you had asked Stephen Perry a question about weddings.
Oh, yeah. Stephen, just on other priorities, just if you have that handy, if you could just give us a quick update on the weddings and bookings?
As of yesterday, we have 47 weddings booked.
And how does that compare again to?
2018, as of 5/21, we had 61 booked. So it's behind. It used to be like probably 50% behind. Now it's like 25% behind. So it's picking up a little bit.
Okay, since I think
Do
the,
we have a good handle that these are the weddings, or that are there still weddings happening that don't get permits?
I would have no idea.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
we could ask Chief that, I
Every
don't know.
wedding planner I've talked to says there are weddings without permits,
I would have no
but
idea.
you have no knowledge.
No.
That's a good question for Chief, probably, if that's getting, anyway. All right, thanks for that update, too. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'll go ahead and we'll set up next meeting for June, and we'll have further discussion on where we are with the Convention Center survey and feedback from other stakeholders on where to go next with that. If anybody can, we'll also put a topic and ask everybody to weigh in on anybody else would like to add to this committee, perhaps with some diversity in mind. And I think those are the two next steps, unless I'm forgetting something. I don't know, Steve, if you've captured any other next steps
What's that for the?
for the next meeting or next agenda items or any tasks. I just have the two. Okay. All right, cool. And then I'll open it up to the floor if anything we forgot or any other final comments. I just want to thank everybody for coming and giving such, I think it was an outstanding dialogue today and great feedback and good brainstorming. And I think we have a way ahead and it's really positive. So appreciate the energy and the feedback and everybody's work. If there's nothing else, then I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 10:36. Thank you. I don't have a gavel. I've never used